The rain drummed against the cracked window of Marcus Thompson's studio apartment in Queens, each drop echoing the hollow ache in his chest. 3 months had passed since Sarah walked out, but the memory still cut deep, her designer heels clicking across the hardwood floor. He'd saved 6 months to refinish, her voice cold as January wind. "I can't do this anymore, Marcus. You're 32 and still driving that beat-up Honda. Brad has a Tesla, a penthouse in Manhattan. He can give me the life I deserve." Marcus stared at his reflection in the black television screen, seeing a man weathered by too many 12-hour shifts at the auto repair shop, calloused hands that once held promise but now only held wrenches. His Navy work uniform hung loose on his frame. He'd lost weight since the breakup, surviving mostly on instant ramen and wounded pride. The irony wasn't lost on him. Here he was, a man who could fix any engine, diagnose any transmission problem, yet he couldn't repair what mattered most. Sarah Martinez had been his everything for 3 years. They'd met at a community college business class, both pursuing dreams that seemed within reach back then. She wanted to open her own boutique. He dreamed of owning a chain of auto shops. They'd spend nights planning their future over cheap wine and take-out Chinese food, her laugh filling the small space with warmth he'd never known. But dreams don't pay rent in New York City. Marcus pulled on his worn leather jacket and headed into the November evening. The streets of Astoria buzzed with life, families hurrying home from work, teenagers gathered outside the corner bodega, the distant hum of traffic from the BQE. This neighborhood had character, unlike the sterile luxury of Manhattan where Sarah now lived. Here, Mrs. Chen still saved him leftovers from her restaurant, and Tony from the barbershop asked about his mother every week. The walk to Murphy's pub took 15 minutes, long enough for the cold air to sting his face and clear his head. Inside, the familiar warmth of aged wood and honest conversation welcomed him. Danny Murphy, third-generation owner, looked up from polishing glasses with a knowing nod. The usual Marcus. "Make it a double tonight, Danny." The whiskey burned, but it was a cleaner pain than the one eating at his insides. Marcus had made this pilgrimage every Friday since the breakup, not to drown his sorrows, but to remind himself he was still alive, still breathing, still capable of feeling something other than regret. "You know what kills me?" Marcus said to his reflection in the mirror behind the bar. "I was saving for a ring, had 12 grand tucked away. Thought I'd propose at Christmas, maybe take her to that fancy restaurant in Brooklyn Heights she always talked about." Danny poured himself a beer and leaned against the bar. At 65, he'd seen plenty of broken hearts walk through his doors. "What did you do with the money?" "Still sitting in the bank. Can't seem to touch it." Marcus swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "Part of me keeps thinking she'll come back. Realize she made a mistake. Pathetic, right?" "Nah, that's human." "But Marcus, you're a good man. Sarah couldn't see what she had, that's her loss." The pub door chimed, and Marcus glanced up to see his older brother Jake entering, shaking rain from his jacket. Jake Thompson commanded attention wherever he went. 6'3", broad shoulders, the kind of confidence that came from success. At 38, he owned Thompson Construction, a company that had grown from a one-man operation to employing 47 people across 3 boroughs. "There's my little brother," Jake said, sliding onto the adjacent stool. "Danny, whatever he's drinking, I'll have the same." "What brings you to Queens, big shot?" Marcus asked, though he was grateful for the company. "Can't check on my brother? Besides, Mom's worried. Says you haven't been returning her calls." Marcus felt the familiar weight of family expectations. While he'd been struggling to keep his head above water, Jake had been building an empire. Their parents, hard-working people who'd immigrated from Ireland 30 years ago, had always been proud of both sons, but Jake's success cast a long shadow. "I'm fine, Jake. Just working through some stuff." "Sarah stuff?" The name hung in the air between them. Jake had never liked Sarah, thought she was too materialistic, too focused on appearances. He'd bitten his tongue for years, but Marcus could see the "I told you so" in his eyes. "She's happy," Marcus said quietly. "Saw her Instagram last week. They went to the Hamptons for the weekend. She looked radiant." Jake's jaw tightened. "You need to stop torturing yourself. Delete that app. Block her number, whatever it takes. Move on. Easy for you to say. You've got the perfect life. Successful business. That gorgeous house in Westchester. Linda pregnant with your second kid. Everything I thought I'd have by now. You think it was easy? Jake's voice carried an edge Marcus rarely heard. You think I didn't bust my ass, work 18-hour days, sacrifice everything to build what I have? The difference is, I never let anyone make me feel small for starting from the bottom. The words stung because they held truth. Marcus had always been the dreamer, Jake the doer. While Marcus talked about expansion plans and franchising opportunities, Jake had been securing loans, bidding on contracts, building relationships that mattered. I've been thinking, Jake continued, his tone softening. Thompson Construction needs a fleet manager, someone who understands vehicles, can maintain our trucks, oversee repairs. The pay's good, $75,000 to start, plus benefits. You interested? Pride and desperation warred in Marcus's chest. Taking his brother's charity felt like admitting defeat, but the opportunity was real. It would mean leaving Ramirez Auto Repair, where he'd worked for 8 years, but it could also mean a fresh start. I don't know, Jake. Working with family, Jake corrected. There's a difference. Think about it. No pressure. As they sat in comfortable silence, Marcus's phone buzzed with a text message. His heart stopped when he saw the name, Sarah Martinez. After 3 months of silence, seeing her name on his screen felt like a punch to the gut. Hey Marcus, I know this is weird, but I need to ask you something. Can we talk? His hands trembled as he stared at the message. Jake noticed the change in his demeanor immediately. What is it? Marcus showed him the phone. Jake's expression darkened. Don't respond. Nothing good comes from looking backward. But Marcus was already typing, his fingers moving before his brain could stop them. What do you need? The response came quickly. Can we meet tomorrow? There's something I need to tell you. It's important. The whiskey felt like acid in his stomach. After months of imagining this moment, rehearsing what he'd say if she ever reached out, Marcus found himself completely unprepared. Part of him wanted to ignore the message, to maintain the dignity he'd been slowly rebuilding. But a larger part, the part that still loved her despite everything, needed to know what she wanted to say. I have to see what she wants, Marcus said finally. Jake grabbed his shoulder. Marcus, don't do this to yourself. She made her choice. Just this once. I need closure. But deep down, Marcus knew it wasn't closure he was seeking. It was hope. Dangerous, destructive hope that maybe somehow things could be different. Outside Murphy's pub, the rain had intensified, turning the November night into a blur of neon reflections and broken dreams. Marcus pulled his jacket tighter and stepped into the storm, unaware that Sarah's message would set in motion events that would change everything he thought he knew about success, love, and second chances. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of crisp November air that made Manhattan feel electric. Marcus stood outside Cafe Luna in Soho, a place that would have seemed impossibly sophisticated 3 months ago, but now felt like foreign territory. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he watched well-dressed professionals sip artisanal coffee while typing on MacBooks, their lives seemingly untouched by the struggles that kept him awake at night. He'd barely slept after Sarah's text, spending most of the night staring at the ceiling of his studio apartment, imagining every possible scenario. Maybe she was pregnant. Maybe Brad had cheated on her. Maybe she realized she'd made a terrible mistake and wanted him back. The possibilities tormented him, each one feeling simultaneously impossible and inevitable. At exactly 11 a.m., Sarah appeared around the corner, and Marcus felt his breath catch. She looked different, more polished, more expensive. Her dark hair was styled in loose waves that framed her face perfectly, and she wore a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. Designer sunglasses perched atop her head despite the overcast sky, and her stride carried the confidence of someone who belonged in this neighborhood. But as she got closer, Marcus noticed the details that others might miss. The slight tension around her eyes, the way she clutched her purse a little too tightly, the hesitation in her step as she spotted him through the window. Sarah Martinez was nervous, and that realization both comforted and terrified him. She entered the cafe with a practiced smile, approaching his corner table, with the same graceful movement that had first captivated him in their business communications class 4 years ago. Up close, he could see she was wearing perfume he didn't recognize, something floral and expensive that replaced the vanilla body spray she used to buy at CVS. "Marcus," she said softly, removing her coat to reveal a black cashmere sweater and perfectly fitted jeans. "Thank you for meeting me." "Sarah." He stood awkwardly, unsure whether to hug her, shake her hand, or simply sit back down. She made the decision for him, leaning in for a brief, impersonal embrace that smelled like her new life. They settled into their seats, and an uncomfortable silence stretched between them. Sarah ordered a skinny vanilla latte with oat milk. Marcus stuck with black coffee. The differences in their choices felt symbolic of everything that had changed. "You look good," she said, though her eyes suggested otherwise. Marcus knew he looked tired, worn down by months of overtime shifts and sleepless nights. His best flannel shirt and clean jeans were his attempt at dignity, but next to her polished appearance, he felt like a fraud. "Thanks. You look..." He paused, searching for words that wouldn't reveal how much seeing her still affected him. "You look happy." Sarah's smile faltered for just a moment. I'm figuring things out." She fidgeted with her engagement ring, a massive diamond that caught the cafe's ambient lighting. Marcus noticed it immediately, felt his stomach drop, but forced himself to maintain eye contact. "Congratulations," he said, nodding toward her hand. "When's the wedding?" "Spring, May, probably." She twisted the ring nervously. That's part of why I wanted to see you." Marcus waited, his coffee growing cold as she gathered her thoughts. Outside, the Saturday afternoon crowd moved past the windows, couples holding hands, friends laughing over brunch, people living lives that seemed effortlessly perfect. "I know this is going to sound crazy," Sarah began, her voice dropping to almost a whisper, "but I need a favor. A big one." "What kind of favor?" She took a shaky breath. "Brad's been different lately. The wedding planning has been stressful, and he's been drinking more, staying out later. Last week I found out he's been lying about some things, financial things." Marcus felt a dark satisfaction at this revelation, immediately followed by shame for feeling that way. "What kind of financial things?" "The Tesla isn't his. It's a lease he can barely afford." "The penthouse? His parents are paying for it, and they're threatening to cut him off if he doesn't shape up, as his father puts it. The fancy dinners, the weekend trips to the Hamptons, it's all credit cards and borrowed money." The irony was suffocating. Sarah had left him for a man who was essentially living a lie, trading one set of financial struggles for another wrapped in prettier packaging. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, and he meant it. "That must be difficult. I feel like such an idiot." Tears gathered in her eyes, and she quickly dabbed them with a napkin. "I left a good man for someone I thought was successful, and it turns out he's just better at pretending. What do you need from me, Sarah?" She looked down at her hands, the massive diamond ring seeming to weigh heavily on her finger. "The wedding is at the plaza. Brad insisted on it, said his family expected nothing less. The problem is, he can't afford the transportation he promised. He was supposed to arrange a luxury car service for the bridal party, something elegant and impressive, but yesterday he admitted he spent the money on gambling debts." Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place, and the realization made his chest tight. "You want me to help with transportation? I know it's insane to ask. I know I have no right after what I did. But Marcus, you were always so good at solving problems, at making things work. I'm desperate. The wedding is in 2 weeks, and I have 6 bridesmaids who are expecting luxury transportation. If I cancel now, everyone will know the truth about Brad's financial situation. His family will be humiliated." "And you're worried about Brad's family being humiliated?" The question came out sharper than Marcus intended. Sarah winced. "I'm worried about my own humiliation. You think I want to admit to everyone that I made a mistake? That I left someone who genuinely cared about me for someone who's been lying about everything?" Marcus stared at her, seeing the pride and fear warring in her expression. This was the woman he'd loved for 3 years, the person he'd planned to marry, asking him to help her marry someone else. The situation was so absurd, it almost seemed fictional. "What exactly are you asking me to do? Jake's company must have vehicles, right? Maybe you could arrange something elegant. I could pay you back once everything settles down. Sarah, Jake's company has work trucks and vans. Nothing you'd want for a plaza wedding. Her face fell. Oh, I don't know what I thought. They sat in silence, the weight of her request hanging between them. Marcus watched the people outside the cafe, all of them seemingly moving with purpose and direction, while he felt completely lost. There might be another option, he said slowly, the words coming out before he could stop them. But you're not going to like it. Hope flickered in her eyes. What do you mean? Jake offered me a job yesterday. Fleet manager for Thompson Construction. Good money, real benefits. If I take it, I might be able to arrange something, not trucks, something appropriate for a wedding. Marcus, that would be incredible. I would owe you everything. You'd owe me nothing, but Sarah, I need you to understand something. If I do this, it's not because I'm hoping we'll get back together. It's not because I think it will change anything between us. I'm doing it because despite everything that happened, I still care about you. And I don't want to see you start your marriage with this kind of stress and humiliation. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and she reached across the table to touch his hand. You're a better man than I deserve. Marcus pulled his hand back gently. I'm just a man trying to figure out how to move forward. As they prepared to leave, Sarah stood and gathered her coat. Marcus, for what it's worth, I really am sorry. Not just about the wedding favor, but about everything. The way I left, the things I said. You deserved better. We both deserved better, he replied. But we made our choices. Outside the cafe, they exchanged an awkward goodbye. Marcus watched her disappear into the crowd, her cream coat a splash of elegance among the Saturday shoppers. He stood there for several minutes, processing what had just happened and wondering if he'd lost his mind. His phone buzzed with a text from Jake. Thought about the offer? Marcus typed back. I'll take it. When can I start? The response was immediate. Monday morning. Welcome to the family business, little brother. As Marcus walked toward the subway station, he realized that Sarah's desperate request had just given him the push he needed to change his life. But first, he had a wedding to plan for the woman who'd broken his heart. Monday morning arrived with the sharp bite of late November, and Marcus stood outside Thompson Construction's headquarters in Long Island City, watching his breath form clouds in the crisp air. The 3-story brick building hummed with activity, trucks arriving with materials, workers heading to job sites, the controlled chaos of a successful business in motion. Inside, the office buzzed with energy that Marcus had never experienced at Ramirez Auto Repair. Jake's secretary, Maria, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, led him through a maze of cubicles where project managers coordinated schedules and accountants tracked expenses. The walls displayed framed photos of completed projects, luxury condos in Brooklyn Heights, renovated townhouses in Park Slope, commercial developments across Queens. Your brother's been talking about bringing you on board for months, Maria said as they reached Jake's corner office. He's convinced you're exactly what this fleet needs. Jake looked up from his desk, which was covered with blueprints and contract documents. At 38, he commanded respect without effort. His gray suit fitted perfectly, his confidence earned through years of building something meaningful from nothing. Marcus, ready to join the big leagues? Jake stood and embraced his younger brother. I've got your workspace set up, company truck assigned, and Maria will walk you through the payroll system. Jake, before we get started, I need to ask about something. Marcus felt awkward bringing up personal business so quickly, but time was running short. Is there any way Thompson Construction could rent or lease luxury vehicles for special events? Jake's eyebrows raised. Special events? What kind of special events? Wedding transportation? High-end stuff? I know it's not your usual business, but this is about Sarah, isn't it? Jake's expression hardened. She contacted you. Marcus nodded, feeling like a teenager asking to borrow the car. She's in a bind, Jake. Her fiancé can't afford the transportation he promised for their wedding. She asked if I could help, and you said yes. It wasn't a question. I said I'd look into it. Look, I know how this sounds, but Jake, helping her might actually help me move on. Prove to myself that I can do something good without expecting anything in return. Jake was quiet for a long moment, studying his brother's face. Then he walked to his office window, which overlooked the East River and the Manhattan skyline beyond. You know what, Marcus? Maybe you're right. Maybe this is exactly what you need. So you'll help. Better than that, I'm going to teach you something about turning problems into opportunities. Jake pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Tony, it's Jake Thompson. Remember that favor you owe me from the Tribeca project? I need to cash it in. Marcus listened as Jake explained the situation to someone named Tony Castellano, who apparently owned a luxury car service in Manhattan. The conversation involved terms like partnership opportunity and expansion into event services that went over Marcus's head. But Jake's enthusiasm was infectious. Here's what's going to happen, Jake said after hanging up. Tony's been looking to expand his business into wedding services, but he needs someone who understands logistics and vehicle maintenance. Someone like a fleet manager with fresh ideas. I don't understand. Thompson Construction is going to partner with Castellano Luxury Transport to create a wedding and special events division. You're going to run it. Tony provides the vehicles, a fleet of stretch limousines, luxury sedans, even a Rolls-Royce for special occasions. We provide the business infrastructure and management expertise. Marcus felt dizzy. Jake, I just started this job 5 minutes ago. I don't know anything about the luxury car business. You know about vehicles, you understand customer service, and you're desperate enough to make it work. That's all you need. Jake grinned with the confidence of someone accustomed to turning risks into rewards. Besides, Sarah's wedding will be our test case. If we can pull off a Plaza Hotel wedding with 2 weeks' notice, we can handle anything. The next 10 days blurred together in a whirlwind of activity that transformed Marcus's life completely. Tony Castellano turned out to be a third-generation Italian-American whose grandfather had started with a single taxi in 1952. Now 63 with silver hair and an expensive suit, Tony treated the partnership like a family arrangement, insisting Marcus call him Uncle Tony and inviting him to dinner with his wife Francesca. The wedding business, it's all about making dreams come true, Tony explained over homemade pasta in his Bay Ridge home. People save their whole lives for one perfect day. You make that day special, they remember you forever. They tell their friends, their family. It's not just business, it's legacy. Marcus threw himself into learning everything about luxury transportation. He studied vehicle specifications, researched wedding protocols, and even took a crash course in customer service from Maria, who'd been handling Thompson Construction's client relations for 15 years. It's about anticipation, she taught him. Rich people expect problems to be solved before they know the problems exist. Sarah's wedding party doesn't just want to arrive, they want to feel like celebrities arriving. The transformation wasn't just professional. For the first time in months, Marcus felt energized, purposeful. He replaced his work uniforms with business casual clothes, traded his beat-up Honda for a company SUV, and found himself looking forward to each day. Jake's gamble was paying off in ways neither brother had anticipated. You know what's funny? Marcus told Danny Murphy, over drinks the Friday before Sarah's wedding. I thought helping her would be about closure, about proving I could be the bigger person. But it's actually about me becoming someone different, someone better. Sometimes we need a push to become who we're supposed to be, Danny replied, polishing glasses with practiced efficiency, even if that push comes from an unexpected direction. Saturday morning arrived clear and cold. Perfect weather for a Plaza Hotel wedding. Marcus stood in Thompson Construction's garage at 6 a.m., watching Tony's team perform final inspections on 3 white stretch limousines, 2 luxury sedans, and Tony's pride and joy, a pristine 1961 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud that would transport the bride. Everything perfect? Tony asked, adjusting his chauffeur's cap with military precision. Everything's perfect, Marcus confirmed, checking his clipboard one final time. Limousines depart for the bridal party at 2 p.m. Rolls-Royce picks up Sarah at 3:30. Reception transportation begins at 11 p.m. As the vehicles departed for Manhattan, Marcus felt a strange mixture of pride and melancholy. He was orchestrating Sarah's perfect wedding day, helping her marry another man, and somehow finding peace with the situation. The irony wasn't lost on him. Losing Sarah had led to finding himself. His phone buzzed with a text from Jake. Mom and Dad are proud of you. So am I. Welcome to the family business, partner. Marcus smiled, straightening his tie and checking his watch. In 6 hours, Sarah Martinez would become Sarah Walsh, arriving at her Plaza Hotel wedding in style, and Marcus Thompson, formerly heartbroken auto mechanic, would be the man who made it happen, not as a desperate ex-boyfriend, but as a successful businessman who turned his pain into purpose. The transformation was complete. Now came the real test. The Plaza Hotel gleamed in the late afternoon sun, its limestone facade reflecting the golden light of a perfect November wedding day. Marcus stood near the hotel's famous fountain, watching the choreographed ballet of New York's elite arriving for Sarah Martinez's wedding to Bradley Walsh III. Doormen in pristine uniforms guided guests towards the Oak Room, while photographers captured every moment of manufactured perfection. At 3:25 p.m., Marcus's radio crackled to life. "Boss, we're 5 minutes out with the bride," came Tony's voice, steady and professional despite the magnitude of the moment. Marcus adjusted his charcoal gray suit, a far cry from the work uniforms he'd worn just 2 weeks ago, and positioned himself near the hotel's entrance. As fleet manager for Thompson Castellano Luxury Transport, this was his moment to prove that their partnership could deliver excellence under pressure. The 1961 Rolls-Royce Silver Cloud turned onto Fifth Avenue like a scene from a classic movie, its pristine white exterior gleaming chrome bumpers reflecting the city's energy. Passers-by stopped to stare as Tony, impeccable in his chauffeur's uniform, guided the vintage luxury vehicle to a perfect stop in front of the plaza's red carpet. Marcus opened the rear passenger door, and Sarah emerged like a vision from another era. Her wedding dress, a flowing creation of silk and French lace, had probably cost more than Marcus used to make in 6 months. Her dark hair was styled in an elegant updo adorned with pearls, and her makeup was flawless, the kind of perfection that required a team of professionals. But it was her eyes that told the real story. Behind the bridal glow and practiced smile, Marcus saw the same uncertainty he'd witnessed at Café Luna 2 weeks ago. This was a woman playing a role, following a script she wasn't entirely sure she believed in. "Marcus," she whispered as he helped her from the vehicle. "Thank you. It's perfect." "Just doing my job," he replied with a professional smile that masked the complex emotions churning inside him. "Tony will be waiting when you need transportation to the reception." For a moment they stood there surrounded by the controlled chaos of wedding preparation. Photographers shouting instructions, wedding planners coordinating timing, family members bustling with nervous energy. In that bubble of activity, Marcus and Sarah faced each other one last time as the people they used to be. "I know this is strange," Sarah said, her voice barely audible above the street noise. "But seeing you like this, successful and confident, it makes me remember why I fell in love with you in the first place." Marcus felt the familiar tug of old emotions, but something had fundamentally changed in the past 2 weeks. The desperate, heartbroken man who'd sat in Murphy's pub drowning his sorrows had been replaced by someone who understood his own worth. "Sarah, you're about to marry Brad. Whatever we had, whatever mistakes we made, they led us both to where we need to be today." Before she could respond, a commotion erupted near the hotel entrance. Bradley Walsh III stood arguing loudly with a man in an expensive suit. His father, Marcus realized, recognizing him from society page photos Sarah used to show him. Brad's face was flushed with anger and embarrassment, his voice carrying across the plaza despite obvious attempts to keep the conversation private. "I told you, Dad, I can handle my own finances," Brad was saying, his words slightly slurred despite the early hour. "The gambling thing is under control." "Under control?" The elder Walsh's voice cut through the afternoon air like a blade. "Son, you've embarrassed this family for the last time. The credit cards are canceled. The penthouse lease expires next month, and if you think I'm paying for this circus..." Sarah's face went pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. This was her worst nightmare playing out in front of New York's social elite, photographers, and hotel staff. The fairy tale wedding she'd sacrificed everything to achieve was crumbling in real time. Marcus watched the scene unfold with a mixture of sadness and clarity. This was the life Sarah had chosen, beautiful on the surface, but built on deception and financial manipulation. She'd traded genuine love for the illusion of security, only to discover that illusions were fragile things. Without thinking, Marcus stepped forward. "Mr. Walsh," he said with quiet authority, approaching the arguing father and son. "Perhaps this conversation would be better continued privately. The photographers are watching." Both men turned to look at him, Brad with confusion, his father with suspicious interest. Marcus extended his hand to the elder Walsh with the confidence he'd learned from Jake's example. "Marcus Thompson, Thompson Castellano Luxury Transport. We're handling today's transportation services." "Thompson?" The older man's expression shifted as he recognized the name. "Jake Thompson's brother? Thompson Construction did excellent work on our Hamptons renovation last summer." "That's my brother, yes, sir." Bradley Walsh Sr. studied Marcus with the calculating gaze of a successful businessman. "Professional, discreet, family-owned operation. I appreciate that." He turned to his son with barely contained disgust. "At least someone involved in this wedding understands how to conduct business properly." As hotel security discreetly guided the Walshmen inside, Marcus found himself alone with Sarah again. She was trembling slightly, whether from cold or emotion, he couldn't tell. "Did you know?" she asked quietly. "About Brad's gambling, his family cutting him off? I suspected something when you told me about his financial problems. But Sarah, this isn't my business anymore. What if I made a mistake? What if I chose the wrong person for the wrong reasons?" Marcus looked at her, really looked at her, seeing not the idealized woman he'd spent months mourning, but a human being struggling with consequences of choices made from fear rather than wisdom. In that moment, he felt the last threads of his old heartbreak dissolve into something deeper. Compassion without attachment. "Sarah, in 30 minutes, you're going to walk down that aisle. That's your choice to make, not mine. But whatever you decide, don't do it because you're afraid of embarrassment or because you think you don't have other options. You deserve better than that. What about you? Do you forgive me?" Marcus considered the question, watching the late afternoon light play across the plaza's windows. 2 weeks ago, forgiveness had seemed impossible. Now it felt like the only way forward. "I forgive you, but more importantly, I thank you. Thank me for showing me that I was settling for less than I deserved too. Not just in love, but in life. Losing you hurt, but it also woke me up. I'm not the same person you left 3 months ago." A wedding planner appeared, clipboard in hand, stress evident in her precise movements. "Ms. Martinez, we need you inside for final preparations. The ceremony begins in 20 minutes. Sarah nodded, then looked back at Marcus one final time. "Will you be okay?" Marcus smiled, not the broken smile of a man trying to convince himself he was fine, but the genuine smile of someone who'd found his path forward. "I'm going to be better than okay. I'm going to be great." As Sarah disappeared into the plaza's elegant interior, Marcus walked back to where Tony waited beside the Rolls-Royce. The older man studied him with knowing eyes. "You did good, kid. Professional and classy. Your brother would be proud." Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "How'd it go?" He typed back. "Perfect. The business is going to be a success. And you?" Marcus looked up at the Plaza Hotel, where Sarah was about to marry a man she wasn't sure she loved. Then at the busy street, where real life continued its messy, beautiful, authentic flow. "I'm exactly where I need to be." As they drove away from the plaza, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in months: excitement about the future. Thompson Castellano Luxury Transport had 3 more weddings booked for December. Jake was talking about expanding into corporate events, and Marcus had discovered abilities he never knew he possessed. The irony was perfect. Sarah had left him for someone with a fancy car, and now Marcus owned a fleet of them. But the real victory wasn't material. It was the recognition that he'd become the man he was always meant to be, with or without her. Sometimes the best revenge was living well. Sometimes it was helping others do the same.